I'm Professor Joseph Soares, the Department of Sociology. Came here as a senior hire from Yale, and I've been very happy ever since. And I teach both introductory courses, theory courses, and upper-level seminars on education and culture. And most of my publications are on higher education. There are books on British universities, American universities, standardized testing, and then articles on graduate programs and also standardized testing. So that's my field.
Thank you. So you were an integral part of Wake Forest making the decision to be test optional with our SAT and ACT scores and the application process. So could you just tell us a little bit about that decision and why it was made?
The research on standardized testing in college admissions is pretty clear that it's overwhelmingly redundant and discriminatory. It's redundant because statistically all of the information that the test conveys that's worth knowing is already captured by the high school transcript. It's discriminatory in that, unlike the high school transcript, test scores, standardized test scores, are stratified by gender, race, and social class. So men score higher than women, but women statistically do better in college than men on average. Whites and Asians score dramatically higher than blacks and Hispanics. And youths from affluent families score much higher than youths from families that are not affluent. The point is that if you select based on test scores, you are using a form of social Darwinism to select a certain profile of a student, but it's not a profile that statistically predicts how well someone will do their first year, second year, third year, or graduate. The SAT and the ACT both perform statistically the same way. They are very weak predictors at best. Either they don't tell you anything or they tell you a tiny bit about how well someone will do in their first year when you add it on to high school grades. They tell you nothing about second year grades or even retention. They tell you nothing about who will graduate. So we much prefer to look at a student's overall track record, their academic courses, their grades in academic courses, their extracurricular activities, so that we can see how well you'll do and also whether or not you're going to be a contributor to the community. Because creativity, work ethic, your capacity to cooperate with other people in projects, none of those things are captured by the test, but those things are captured by the file. So we look at the whole person and not just this numbers way of excluding folks. Now, we were able to make that decision that the research clearly showed that it was redundant and discriminatory because we've gotten a new provost. And the new provost, Jill Teufenthaler, was an economist who had also done her own research on this, was familiar with it. And when I met her for the very first time, and she asked me what I worked on, I showed her a copy of my second book. She read it and literally then bought copies of it for everyone in the admissions office and on the admissions committee. And then Martha Allman and Jill and I and other people sat down and talked about it and decided, yeah, this really is something we would like to move beyond. And we acted on it quite quickly. That took one academic year.
Great. And have you seen any changes in either admission or the student life and student body since this decision was made?
A lot of positive changes in that we have both more social diversity and also, I think, stronger students. And the numbers back that up. We have more students of color, more first-generation students. Our students of color have gone up from being in the low teens to being now about 23%. We had about 3% of our students were first-generation and Pell Grant students, meaning they come from very poor families. Now that's about 12%. At the same time that we've increased our racial and social diversity, we've also gotten stronger students. When we were going test optional, 65% of our students were from the top 10% of their high school class. Today it's 86%. Dramatic increase in that. And we've seen also an increase in library usage. Libraries are very good at keeping numbers on things. So since we've gone test optional, the number of people going into the library asking for assistance with research has gone up dramatically. We document all this in the book that I encourage everyone to get, which is the SAT Wars book, which our provost, Jill Tiefenthaler, when we made the decision, she has a chapter in that. I have two chapters in that. People from across the country, President of the University of California, people from Princeton, all over the United States have chapters in that. But I document in there how we've gotten socially more diverse and also academically stronger students since we've gone test optional. So.
Great. And what would you say to someone who disagrees with the decision for Wake Forest to go test optional?
Well, I would ask them on what basis do they believe that the test adds value. The test is incredibly expensive, time-consuming. It gives people a false sense of either snobbery or shame, because you either believe your score tells you how bright you are or how stupid you are, and none of those things are true. The test statistically just best predicts how well you will do on another standardized test. It doesn't predict grades in college, completing college, or life accomplishments. So I would want to know why the person thought this was important for us to use. Now, when we went test optional, there were about 750 test optional colleges in the United States, four-year institutions. Today, there's about 870. The rate of people going test optional continues to increase. And I really do expect that the SAT and the ACT and the graduate school version of that, the GRE, those tests will go away because they're bad tests, and more people are aware of that. So to a person who felt that this was important, I would want to understand why they believed that this was essential to, either picking the right people, which it isn't, or getting the best brains, which it's not. And I would talk with them about it and encourage them to read at it and examine the record.